Hey, hello everybody, and welcome to a brand new video. Today I wanted to talk about 10 updates that actually failed a poll but really would have changed RuneScape forever. Now, I don't mean change necessarily in a bad way. However, most of these probably would have affected RuneScape negatively, but not all of them. So anyway, let's get started. So coming in at number 1 is revolving the Nightmare Zone. So most people realize that, well, the Nightmare Zone did pass a poll. However, there were a few aspects of the Nightmare Zone that thankfully in this case did not pass a poll, because these would have probably negatively affected RuneScape. So let's start off here. Assuming that the new minigame is created, its rewards should include teleport scrolls that take you to any runecrafting altar. Now, I'm not sure if they specified how quickly you'd be able to accumulate these scrolls. However, I think any amount, it's just unacceptable. Directly teleporting to a runecrafting altar is extremely overpowered. I mean, there's a few ways this could be a little bit less broken, as in you would have to have a limit to how many you could buy a day, like it is for the herb packs, or just make them very expensive in Nightmare Zone points. However, the amount of time that people, especially at this time where AFK in the Nightmare Zone is huge, so people would accumulate points extremely quickly, and having direct teleports to runecrafting altars would, well, speed up certain runecrafting methods tenfold probably. Imagine if you stacked up 100 of these teleports directly to the nature altar. You could craft all 100 inventories of nature runes in probably like 5 to 10 minutes, which could be millions of GP just coming straight out of Nightmare Zone, which is way too broken for something that already has so many strong aspects to it. Another part of this poll that failed was as follows. Nightmare Zone's reward shop could sell an ingredient that upgrades a super energy potion to an energy renewal potion requiring level 92 herb lore. The energy renewal potion would restore all of your run energy and keep it topped up for 30 seconds. Level 96 would be needed to add caviar. The potion and ingredients would be tradable. So this on paper is extremely overpowered, and probably in practice too. Restoring all of your run energy at once would devalue the rest of the potion so much. I'm assuming this would have been extremely expensive, but keeping it topped up fully for 30 seconds is extremely overpowered. Even the stamina potion drops your energy, and that failed with 71.5%, so very close. And I forgot to mention earlier, the runecrafting altar method failed with 63.9%, which is not even that low to be honest. It only failed by 12%, so it's actually pretty close to coming into the game. Also, another part of the Nightmare Zone poll that failed was an ingredient that upgrades a prayer potion to a super prayer potion requiring level 94 herb lore. The super prayer potion would increase your prayer points by 4 more than an existing prayer potion dose and could boost your prayer stat above its base level to do this. This failed with 69%. This would still have been pretty overpowered, but I think actually less overpowered than the stamina potion really, but that's just my opinion. Okay, so coming in at number 2 is more of a lack of a change than a feature that was coming into the game, and that was that the 6-hour splashing polls just continued to fail to actually pass. What I mean by that is the 6-hour timer that was involved in making Nightmare Zone incredibly overpowered was just not passing a poll. Even the way it's worded just makes you feel bad about voting no on this. Being able to train magic effectively in Nightmare Zone without the need to use player-created runes is having a severe effect on the runecrafting skill. To allow you to keep getting the current XP and maintain the value of the runecrafting skill, should you only get magic experience in Nightmare Zone if you use your own runes. Failed 57%, not even really close. Should we introduce an activity timer which logs you out of the game whether or not you are in combat if you have not interacted with the client for 5 minutes? Failed 55%, yes. So obviously the mentality of the community has changed a lot since then, but at that time it was not even close to passing, and it really had such a negative effect because of that. So many people maxed out their combat skills doing absolutely nothing. People maxed out their magic skills as well for free when magic is normally a very expensive skill to do so. And was just so stupid that stayed in the game so long. Coming in at number 3 is a change to the Abyssal Tentacle. Now this actually almost passed a poll, and it's should the Abyssal Tentacle have an attack style for training strength? 69% voted yes. Now this wouldn't have been horrendous for the game, however, it would have made the Abyssal Whip just the best training weapon overall. The only real downside to the Abyssal Whip right now is you cannot train strength. I do understand the Abyssal Tentacle is a degradable attachment, so I mean it wouldn't have been perfect. However, it would have made it probably better than all the strength training weapons right now in the game. Maybe the Abyssal Bludgeon would be better, but still, for how cheap the Abyssal Whip is, I don't think it should have had this ability for it. Thankfully, it did not come into the game. So coming in at number 4 was the poll to add the Artisan Skill. For those who don't know what the Artisan Skill could have been, essentially it would have been somewhat like the Slayer alternative for skilling. So you would get these tasks that would involve skilling as opposed to killing monsters, and you would get bonus experience and different rewards based on how well you performed and how long the task and what level the task was, etc. I personally think the Artisan Skill would have fit in better to RuneScape than the Sailing Skill. However, it failed a poll with 58.9%. Undoubtedly, this would have changed the game incredibly. It's hard to say in which direction. At the time, the community was definitely not behind adding a new skill to the game, and for good reason as well. I think personally one of the bigger reasons why this didn't do so well is the information in the dev blog was not fleshed out very well. I'm looking at it right now and it has a bunch of white boring graphs in it, and I don't think the information was presented very well, and it was so much content at once. I understand if you're launching a new skill you need to have a bunch of content to go with it, but there were just so many changes, so many things that affected all the skills in the game that it is understandably scary to add that all in at once. I'm not sure what a good solution is for this, but I totally understand why this was never added into the game, and possibly for good reason. Coming in at number 5 is something that has been polled a ridiculous amount of times, and that is to reduce the required vote percentage to 70% from 75%. Would you like the requirement for a question to pass a poll to be reduced from 75% to 70%? Please note that this question requires 75% to pass, not 70%. Should this question pass, we will also be open to repolling questions which received between 70% and 75% at some point in the future. Now this failed with 63.6%, which is good because I think it would be awkward if it failed with like 74%. I see no reason for us to reduce the voting percentage any amount. I think it's good where it is at and it should not be reduced. I think the amount of content at this point and now coming into the game is totally acceptable, if not a little too quickly, but I think it's fine for the most part. What kind of scares me a bit is this has been polled at least 3 times I could see. It's failed every time, but the fact that they can repoll old questions without a legitimate reason seems a little sketchy to me. I understand that if you made substantial changes to the proposed content, maybe I could see them repolling it and it being fair. However, just blatantly just redoing the poll over and over again and just hoping that it passes this time is really stupid and should not be allowed. A few other things related to voting is, would you like an abstain option when voting? This will mean you do not have to vote in every question in a poll. For this to work, we will have to remove the ability to vote through the website. Now this one is insane. Would you like the option to change your vote at any time while a poll is open? For this to work, we'll have to remove the ability to vote through the website. That failed with 59.2%. Having the ability to change your vote after, on the surface, doesn't seem that nefarious, but there's already such a herd mentality to voting, especially since the results aren't hidden. This might be okay if all the results were hidden, but the fact that at any time the vote could completely change and people could redo their vote is ridiculous, and it's very good this never passed. And the last step here is, currently in order to vote you need a total level of 280. It can take around 11 hours of gameplay to get a total level of 280. Should we change the requirement to vote to be a minimum of 25 hours in game time? And this narrowly failed with 74.5%. I personally think that would have been fine to pass. If you've only played this game for 12 hours, I don't think you're going to have a ton of information to vote with, and if you have a bunch of alt accounts, you should probably not be able to vote that easily as well. Coming in at number 6 was a potential change to the achievement diaries. When they were getting released, there was a poll for the following. If achievement diaries are introduced, would you like them to have repeatable tasks which you could do to gain a small benefit for a limited time, which is related to that diary? It failed with 56%. I think it's probably good it failed the poll. This would just be going further and further into the dailyscape mentality. We already have a fair amount of dailies in old school RuneScape, and most MMOs are not benefiting in the long run from having a bunch of daily activities. It just forces you to feel like you need to log in every day, do your dailies, and then you just don't do anything else. You shouldn't have to be blackmailed by the game you're playing to force you to log in. You should log in if you want to, and when you log in you get to have fun. You don't have to just run through the same thing you have to do every single day to get maximum efficiency. So I think this is good that we're not going in that direction. Coming in at number 7 is a change that would have affected lucky implings, and this was so close to passing. Should uber rare lucky implings be added to old school RuneScape, they would require level 89 to catch. Once caught, they would be untradeable and would provide 1 roll on a clue scroll drop table when looted. So we do have lucky implings in RuneScape, however, the drops are much shittier than this. You get a roll on like every single item in game, and hardly anyone actually gets anything good from them. So this failed with 74.7%, probably just shy of 20 or 30 votes that it failed by. Since lucky implings are so rare, I don't think this would have negatively affected the game that much, but it certainly would have changed it a lot. I personally think this would be kind of a cool idea. However, I think it should be scaled quite heavily towards giving you easy, medium, or hard diary rewards more often than like elite and master. At this point, I don't even know if the master clue rewards were out yet, and considering the rarity of the lucky implings, I don't think this would have been too overpowered, and maybe a little more rewarding for finding very rare implings. Coming in at number 8 is involving the Zenyte jewelry that came out with Monkey Madness 2. If Zenyte equipment passes a poll, should it be possible to charge it to get passive healing effects on top of everything else it gives? Now this failed with 57.5%, which is probably good. The Zenyte items are already so stacked. Yes, they are endgame equipment, but giving it a passive heal effect would just be way too much, and it wouldn't really fit in with some of the equipment, like maybe on the Ring of Suffering because it's a defensive-oriented piece of equipment. However, the rest of them are all offense, so having something that just kind of passively heals you just wouldn't really make a lot of sense and would have been extremely overpowered anyway. Coming in at number 9 is loot share in old school RuneScape. So in RuneScape 3, there is a loot share option, however, it is very buggy and causes a multitude of other issues. So here's the poll. Loot share is a system which gives everyone in a team a chance of receiving big drops from bosses. Should loot share be added to old school RuneScape? So this failed with 69.7%. It was pretty close to passing. One more part of this is if loot share is introduced, should it use loot share potential to make players more likely to receive loot if they haven't received a big drop recently? That failed with 55.2%. So let's talk about the last one quickly. Altering the drop rate on items just because people have gone dry just seems like a very slippery slope for a game. Old school RuneScape is famously based on RNG being fair for everybody. Some people will get lucky and some people won't. However, not only is this not fair for everyone, but it also seems very easily to be manipulated, as does the entire loot share suggestion. It either has to dole out the items based on your performance or straight up convert it to cash, which I've seen suggested before. But then all you're infusing the economy with is straight up cash, and that's not good either. I think overall this is not very old school, it doesn't fit in the game, and I don't think it should pass a poll. And coming in at number 10 is Sailing. Sailing was originally proposed as a joke on April 1st, 2014. However, later it was actually polled. It did fail with 68%, so it actually did better than Artisan. As with the other skill, it's hard to know how big of an impact such a large piece of content would have on the game. I personally am not super against a new skill, and I think eventually we might need one, but at this point it clearly wasn't the case. It just kind of seems like it could almost be a mini game. Does it really need to be an entire skill? One common concept between these two is the fact that the new skill would require the use of a ton of other skills. It just kind of feels like it could just be a smaller subset of the game, not an entirely new skill overall. I think that if a new skill is going to come into the game, it has to be something basic and a core feature that can be added and improved upon later, or just delete firemaking and put a different one in instead. Firemaking is so useless. If firemaking was polled today, it would fail every time. Firemaking sounds really dumb from afar, and up close too. It's just not a very useful skill. I think Sailing was going to be kind of the same feel as Dungeoneering, but maybe with ships. I don't think it would have been awful, but it clearly would have changed the game a lot, for better or for worse. Anyway guys, that is about it. Those are 10 updates that never ended up passing. Some of them might have been good, some of them might have been bad, but I guess we'll never know. Thanks for watching guys, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to leave a video a like, and I will see you next time.